Ancient civilizations built technologies we still cannot fully explain. This video uncovers 25 forgotten ancient advancements that once seemed beyond human capability. You will discover how our ancestors achieved engineering marvels that challenge our modern understanding of history. We will explore how a 2,000-year-old device predicted eclipses with gearwork rivaling a modern clock. We will investigate why some concrete structures grow stronger over centuries while ours crumble in decades. By the end, you will gain a new perspective on human ingenuity and the fragile nature of progress. What forgotten knowledge from the past do you think could change our future? That corroded bronze device from the shipwreck was not a simple tool. It was a marvel of miniaturization, a complex clockwork of at least 30 interlocking bronze gears housed in a wooden case no larger than a shoebox. When researchers finally peered inside using advanced imaging technology, they found a universe of precision engineering. The largest gear had 225 teeth, each one hand cut with a level of accuracy that would challenge a modern machinist. This was not a prototype. It was a refined instrument, the product of a long-lost tradition of mechanical craftsmanship. The mechanism could track the movements of the sun and moon, predict lunar and solar eclipses, and even model the irregular orbit of the moon with a clever use of pin and slot gearing that accounted for its changing speed. It displayed this information on dials on both the front and back, a portable planetarium for a philosopher or a navigator. The existence of the Antikythera Mechanism implies something profound. It could not have been the first of its kind. The knowledge required to design and build it points to a forgotten school of engineering, a lineage of thinkers who saw the universe as a machine long before the scientific revolution. Its silent gears whisper a question that echoes through the centuries. If this single device survived by pure chance, what other wonders of the ancient world have vanished without a trace, leaving only a ghost in the historical record? That same ingenuity in mechanics was matched by an almost magical understanding of materials. The Pantheon in Rome stands as a silent witness, its vast unsupported dome the largest of its kind in the world even after nearly 2,000 years. Modern concrete, a material we use in almost everything, often shows its age within decades, cracking and crumbling under the stress of weather and time. Yet Roman concrete, the stuff of ancient harbors and aqueducts, did the opposite. It grew stronger. The secret was not just in the recipe, but in a chemical process the Romans themselves may not have fully understood but mastered through observation. They mixed lime and volcanic ash, a material called pozzolana, with chunks of rock and then used seawater to bind it all together. For centuries, scientists assumed this was a primitive formula. We were wrong. Recent geological studies have uncovered the true marvel. When seawater seeped into the concrete, it reacted with the volcanic ash and lime to form rare, plate-like minerals. As tiny cracks began to form, water would enter and instantly trigger a new chemical reaction. This reaction would create crystalline structures that filled the cracks, effectively healing the concrete from within. It was a self-repairing material. This is why Roman piers still stand solidly in the Mediterranean, battered by waves for 2 millennia, while our own modern concrete seawalls deteriorate in a matter of years. The knowledge of this reactive chemistry was lost with the empire's fall. Medieval builders living in the shadow of these indestructible ruins could only replicate the shape of the stones, not the science behind their strength. They reverted to simpler, weaker mortars, unable to comprehend the alchemy their ancestors had perfected. How did such a fundamental technology simply vanish from our collective memory? This mastery over the elements did not stop with earth and water. Our ancestors next learned to capture the very power of the sun itself. While Roman concrete withstood the sea, another ancient weapon mastered it with fire. Picture a Byzantine dromon, a swift war galley, closing with an enemy fleet. Instead of launching arrows, it unleashes a roaring jet of liquid flame, a fire that clings to wooden hulls and dances across the waves. Water could not quench it. It was a nightmare made real, a weapon so potent its exact formula was a state secret guarded on pain of death. They called it Greek fire, and for centuries it was the ultimate naval deterrent, burning enemy morale as fiercely as it burned their ships. Historical accounts describe a sticky, gelatinous substance that was likely a volatile cocktail of crude petroleum, pine resin, and perhaps quicklime, a chemical that ignites violently upon contact with water. This was not simply thrown in pots. It was projected from bronze tubes mounted on the prows of ships, pressurized siphons that acted as primitive flamethrowers. The operator would pump a bellows, forcing the liquid through a heated nozzle where it was likely ignited, creating a continuous stream of destruction that could reach terrifying distances. The psychological impact was as calculated as the chemistry. To see fire, the very element that should be tamed by the ocean, spreading uncontrollably towards you, was to witness a defiance of nature itself. The Byzantine Empire held this secret for over 500 years, a monopoly on terror that secured its naval dominance long after its legions had dwindled. And then the knowledge simply vanished. The precise recipe and the engineering of the pressurized pumps were lost, perhaps with the fall of the last artisan who understood the alchemy. Modern scientists can only speculate, attempting to recreate a ghost of its former glory. How did they achieve such stable combustion, such reliable projection with the materials of their time? This fiery innovation, born from the crucible of war, demonstrates a mastery over chemistry that would not be seen again for centuries. The power to shape battlefields with flame gives way to a quieter, more profound technology, one that allowed an entire civilization to sculpt its very environment. Far beneath the sun-scorched deserts of ancient Persia, a hidden river flowed in silence. This was not a river of nature, but one of human genius, a network of underground tunnels called Qanats that transformed barren lands into fertile gardens. Beginning over 3,000 years ago, Persian engineers mastered the art of capturing water from deep within mountain aquifers and guiding it for dozens of miles using nothing but the unerring pull of gravity. They began by digging a mother well, a deep shaft that tapped into the water table at the foot of a mountain. From there, they would carefully tunnel backwards, carving a gently sloping channel just deep enough underground to prevent evaporation in the searing heat. Every 100 feet or so, they would sink another vertical shaft to the surface. These shafts were not just for digging, they served as vents to keep the air fresh for the workers and as permanent access points for maintenance, a subterranean highway for an entire class of tunnel clearers who kept the life-giving water flowing for generations. The precision required was staggering. The slope of the main tunnel had to be perfectly calculated, just steep enough to maintain a steady flow, but not so steep that the water would gain destructive speed and erode the channel walls. A miscalculation of even a fraction of an inch per mile could mean the difference between a thriving city and a forgotten ruin. This was an advanced understanding of hydrology and geology, achieved without modern instruments. The result was a sustainable, energy-free water system that allowed magnificent cities like Persepolis to rise in the heart of the desert. The technology was so effective it spread across continents, from the Middle East to North Africa, and even into Spain, where it was known as the Qanat, influencing irrigation for more than 1,000 years. These silent, underground rivers ask us a profound question about our own era of complex pumps and energy-intensive desalination plants. What can we learn from these ancient, elegant solutions to the eternal challenge of water scarcity? While the Persians mastered the flow of water, another civilization learned to harness an even more fleeting force, the power of the wind. Rising from the same deserts made fertile by underground canals, slender towers of brick and clay began to catch the relentless wind. These were the vertical axis windmills of ancient Persia, standing as some of the first machines in history to systematically harvest the power of the air. Their design was a stroke of genius in its simplicity and adaptation. Unlike the familiar horizontal windmills of Europe that would appear centuries later, these Persian mills had a central vertical shaft, like a massive spinning column. Bundles of reeds or woven cloth sails were arranged around this shaft, catching the wind from any direction without needing to be turned. This was a machine perfectly suited to the unpredictable, swirling desert winds. The captured energy would turn heavy millstones to grind grain into flour, or, just as crucially, power water lifting devices to draw from the Qanats, creating a perfect symbiotic system of wind and water that sustained life in arid lands. Historical accounts from the 9th century describe these mills operating in the region of Sistan, a place known for its 120-day wind. A powerful, constant force that these communities learned not just to endure, but to employ. They were not merely using the wind, they were engineering with it, optimizing the sail area and the gearing to extract the maximum useful work from a natural, endless resource. This was renewable energy engineering on an impressive scale, a concept we often view as modern. How did they first conceive of trapping the invisible force of the wind and bending it to their will? The answer lies in a deep, observational understanding of their environment, transforming a challenge of nature into a pillar of their civilization. This mastery of forces above the ground finds a startling parallel in an ancient technology that sought to understand the world far below it. High in the Andes, stone walls fit together with a perfection that defies logic. The Inca builders of the 15th century carved granite blocks into puzzles of staggering complexity, locking them together without a single drop of mortar. At sites like Sacsayhuaman, the stones are so massive and so perfectly joined that you cannot slide the edge of a knife blade between them. This was dry stone construction pushed to its absolute limit, a technique that transformed rigid walls into flexible structures capable of surviving the violent earthquakes that shake the mountains. Instead of fighting the Earth's movement, the Incas designed with it. During a tremor, the interlocking stones would shift and settle, then lock back into place once the shaking stopped, a brilliant dance of engineering that kept their temples and fortresses standing for centuries. How did they achieve such impossible precision with only stone and bronze tools? The prevailing theory suggests a process of immense patience and clever abrasion. Workers likely used harder stones to pound and shape the granite, then used sand and water to polish the contact surfaces for hours, perhaps days, until the fit was flawless. Yet some mysteries remain. The curves and multifaceted angles of the blocks are so complex that a few researchers have proposed even more advanced, almost mythical techniques. Could they have used specific plant extracts to temporarily soften the stone, making it malleable like clay? Did they somehow use sound waves to find the stone's natural fracture points? We may never know the full answer. Their understanding of geology and material properties seems to have been profound, an intuitive science passed down through generations of master masons. This incredible stonecraft, so grounded in the earth, leads us to a technology that sought to master something far more ethereal, the very nature of light. That same mastery of earthly materials was achieved with metal in the hands of Middle Eastern blacksmiths. In a glowing forge, a smith would work a lump of imported Indian steel, known as woots, into a blade of mythic reputation. This was Damascus steel, instantly recognizable by its flowing, watery pattern on the surface, a visual signature of its extraordinary inner strength. Forged between the 3rd and 17th centuries, these swords were not just beautiful, they were terrifyingly effective on the battlefield. They were said to be sharp enough to slice a silk scarf floating in the air and tough enough to shatter a lesser blade without losing their own edge. The secret was not just in the smith's skill, but in the material itself. The raw woot steel ingots from India contained a unique microstructure. Modern analysis using electron microscopes has revealed an astonishing secret locked within the metal: the presence of carbon nanotubes and cementite nanowires. These are microscopic structures that, in essence, acted as a natural reinforcement, creating a composite material that was both incredibly hard and surprisingly flexible. The smiths, of course, knew nothing of nanotechnology. Their genius lay in a forging process that preserved and enhanced this hidden structure. They would heat, hammer, and fold the steel repeatedly, a carefully controlled dance of temperature and pressure that aligned these microscopic reinforcements throughout the blade. The final step, quenching the red-hot steel in a liquid, typically water or oil, would lock this complex matrix in place. The result was a blade that resisted chipping and bending, a perfect marriage of art and science achieved through generations of perfected, hands-on knowledge. Then the supply of the specific Indian ore dried up, and the intricate craft secrets, passed from master to apprentice, were lost. Today, metallurgists understand the science behind the steel's properties, but they cannot perfectly replicate the original process or source the exact raw materials. We can analyze the ghost, but we cannot resurrect the body. The legendary Damascus steel blade stands as a monument to an empirical science that reached atomic-level mastery without ever knowing the words for it. How did these artisans, working by fire and instinct, achieve a level of material control that we can only fully appreciate with million-dollar microscopes? This defiance of a metal's natural limitations finds a parallel in an ancient society that seemed to defy gravity itself. A simple clay jar, unassuming and cracked with age, held a secret that would not be understood for nearly 2 millennia. Found in the ruins of a Parthian village just outside modern Baghdad, this artifact, dating to around 250 years before the Common Era, contains nothing more than a copper cylinder, an iron rod, and evidence it was once sealed with asphalt. To an untrained eye, it is just a curious pot, but when filled with an acidic liquid like vinegar or grape juice, something remarkable happens. The acidic solution acts as an electrolyte, allowing a chemical reaction between the copper and the iron. A faint electric current flows, a potential difference of roughly 1 to 2 volts. It is, in essence, a primitive battery. The discovery immediately ignited fierce debate. What possible use could such a low level of electricity have served in the ancient world? Some researchers propose a practical application in electroplating, suggesting it could have been used to deposit a thin layer of gold or silver onto other metals, a process that would have seemed like magic. Others speculate it could have been employed for medical purposes, with a mild shock used to treat pain or for use in religious ceremonies, creating a mysterious tingle for devotees touching a sacred statue. While no wires or associated devices have been found to prove its function, the simple fact of its existence is what truly stuns. Replicas built to its specifications work. This means that the basic principles of electrochemistry were not discovered by Alessandro Volta in the 19th century, but were potentially known and experimented with over 2,000 years earlier. This single, humble jar hints at a lost branch of experimental science, a path of inquiry into the nature of energy that was abandoned and forgotten. It forces us to ask a deeply unsettling question. If this artifact survived by pure chance, what other electrical devices, perhaps more complex, have crumbled to dust without a trace? The knowledge required to create even a simple battery suggests a culture of tinkerers and philosophers who are asking questions about the fundamental forces of the world. This exploration of invisible energy finds a parallel in another ancient innovation, one that sought to capture and measure the most fundamental force of all, time itself. The Maya did not simply track time, they wove it into the very fabric of their universe. From their jungle observatories, they charted the movements of planets with a precision that would not be matched in Europe for over 1,000 years. Their long count calendar was a masterpiece of mathematical ambition, a grand cycle spanning 5,125 years. This was not a simple tally of days, but a complex intermeshing of multiple calendars, synchronized to harmonize solar years, lunar months, and the orbit of Venus. They achieved this through a numerical system that was centuries ahead of its time, one that incorporated the concept of zero as a placeholder, a conceptual leap that eluded the Romans and the Greeks. With this mathematical power, Mayan scribes could calculate celestial events with staggering accuracy, predicting eclipses and aligning their monumental pyramids, like the Temple of Kukulkan at Chichen Itza, to cast specific shadows during equinoxes. This was a cosmology carved in stone and written in codex, a vision of time as a sacred, cyclical force. How did a civilization without telescopes or advanced optics map the heavens with such clarity? Their knowledge was built on generations of relentless observation, a cumulative science passed down through priest astronomers who saw the stars not as distant lights, but as active characters in a cosmic drama. The long count was more than a calendar, it was a philosophical statement, a belief that human history was intimately tied to the rhythms of the cosmos. This profound connection to the universe's vibrations finds a startling parallel in a technology that sought to manipulate a much more immediate force, the physics of sound itself. Sound is a force we can feel but not see, a vibration that can shatter glass or soothe a mind. What if ancient builders learned to command this invisible power, using it to lift stones that would defy 100 workers? Legends from the deserts of Egypt to the high plateaus of Tibet speak of such a feat, describing construction rituals where the deep thrum of drums or the resonant chant of priests allowed massive blocks to float into place as if weightless. The theoretical key is acoustic levitation, a principle where specific, carefully tuned frequencies can create standing waves. In these waves, points of high pressure and low pressure form a stable, invisible lattice. An object placed at a node, a point of minimal pressure, can be suspended, held aloft by the energy of sound itself against the pull of gravity. While modern science has proven this is possible, it is a delicate art. In laboratories today, ultrasonic levitation is used to manipulate tiny droplets or silicon chips in mid-air, a far cry from moving multi-ton stones. The leap in scale is staggering, yet the persistent myths cannot be easily dismissed. They suggest a lost empirical knowledge, an understanding that every material has a natural resonant frequency. Could master architects have discovered the specific notes that made granite hum, that made limestone vibrate with such energy that friction was nullified, and massive blocks could be guided with a gentle push? This would represent a profound fusion of physics and spirituality, where the sacred chant was not merely ritual but a precise tool, a form of sonic engineering. The stones of ancient sites might hold more than history. They might hold the silent echo of a forgotten technology that turned vibration into a physical force. This resonant mystery of moving mountains with sound gives way to an even more audacious feat, one that did not move mountains but carved entire cities directly from them. The Kailasa temple at Ellora was not built but revealed. It is a mountain turned into a monument, a sprawling complex of halls, pillars, and sacred spaces, all carved from a single, massive outcropping of basalt rock. Imagine the audacity of the vision in the 8th century, to stand before a solid cliff face and see not stone, but a finished temple waiting within. The scale of the work is almost incomprehensible. Artisans wielding little more than chisels, hammers, and iron picks began at the top. They carved down, removing an estimated 200,000 tons of rock in a meticulous, subtractive process that was the ultimate exercise in precision. One wrong strike, one miscalculation in depth, and an entire pillar or statue could be ruined beyond repair. This was engineering in reverse, a sculpture on a colossal scale where the workers did not add, but only removed, trusting the blueprint that existed wholly in the minds of the master architects. The entire complex, with its multi-story towers and intricate reliefs depicting gods and goddesses, was excavated downward from the living rock. The precision of the layout, the perfect alignment of chambers, and the sheer structural confidence required to leave freestanding elements like the monumental elephant statues all point to an advanced, almost intuitive grasp of geometry and static loads. How could they possibly have planned something of this complexity without modern surveying tools or detailed engineering drawings? The answer lies in a profound understanding of their material and a generational patience that is alien to our modern world. This was not a project for a single lifetime, but a testament to a civilization's unwavering dedication to its gods. The temple complex stands as a permanent reminder that the most enduring structures are not assembled, but born from the earth itself. This mastery over the solid ground finds its next great challenge not in unmoving stone, but in the restless, unpredictable expanse of the ocean. The vast Pacific Ocean was not a barrier to the Polynesians, but a pathway they knew by heart. In double-hulled voyaging canoes capable of carrying entire communities, they crossed thousands of miles of open sea, discovering and settling islands from Hawaii to New Zealand without a single compass or chart as we know them. These explorers were living navigation systems, their senses tuned to the subtle language of the natural world. They memorized the precise rising and setting points of hundreds of stars, using them as a celestial compass. By day, they read the ocean itself, interpreting the long, deep swells that reflected off distant islands and the specific patterns of clouds that gathered over unseen land. Even the flight paths of birds and the types of debris floating in the water gave them clues to the nearest shore. This profound knowledge was not written down but encoded into intricate stick charts. These were not maps of land but sculptures of the sea, made from palm ribs and cowrie shells that represented the interaction of ocean currents and swells around groups of islands. To an outsider, they were abstract puzzles, but to a trained navigator, they were a three-dimensional guide to the Pacific. This mastery was passed down orally through generations of wayfinders, a continuous chain of memory that began as early as 1,000 years before the Common Era. It was a holistic science blending astronomy, meteorology, and oceanography into an intuitive art. In an age of satellite positioning, we have traded that deep, sensory connection to our environment for the convenience of a digital screen. The Polynesian achievement stands as a monumental testament to the power of human memory and observation, proving that the most sophisticated technology can sometimes be the cultivated human mind itself. How much of our own innate ability to perceive the world have we surrendered to our devices? This oral tradition of preserving immense knowledge finds a parallel in a far more permanent, yet equally mysterious, ancient innovation. The Great Library of Alexandria was more than a building. It was the collective mind of the ancient world. Founded in the 3rd century before the Common Era, this legendary institution systematically gathered knowledge on an unprecedented scale, sending agents to every port and market to buy, borrow, or copy every scroll they could find. Its halls were not just a storage space, but a living, breathing center of scholarship where the greatest thinkers of the age could access the wisdom of countless cultures. The library's organization was a technological marvel in itself. It employed a head librarian and a staff of dedicated scholars who created the Pinax, a massive catalog that functioned as an early encyclopedia and index, systematically listing authors and summarizing their works across hundreds of scrolls. This allowed a researcher to locate a specific text on astronomy, medicine, or mechanics with an efficiency that would not be seen again for over 1,000 years. The preservation methods were equally advanced. Precious papyrus scrolls were stored in labeled clay jars or wooden chests to protect them from the humid air, and herbs like cedar oil were used to repel insects and prevent decay. This was a concerted, state-sponsored effort to create a permanent backup of human understanding, a global memory bank designed to withstand the ravages of time. The tragedy, of course, is that it did not withstand the ravages of man. While the exact circumstances of its destruction are still debated by historians, the repeated fires and conflicts that ultimately consumed the library led to an incalculable loss. We can only speculate about the specific texts that vanished, the plays of Sophocles, the histories of Babylon, the technical manuals for machines and medicines that died with the scrolls that held them. The loss of the Library of Alexandria may have set back scientific and technological progress for centuries, forcing countless generations to rediscover truths that were once neatly catalogued and available. It stands as a permanent warning about the fragility of knowledge itself. What trajectory would human civilization have taken if that vast repository had survived intact? This catastrophic loss of collective wisdom finds a stark contrast in the next technology, one designed not to preserve life but to efficiently end it. A soldier on an ancient Chinese battlefield could hold a terrifying power in his hands. The crossbow, equipped with a precision bronze trigger mechanism, was more than just a weapon, it was a machine. From around 400 years before the Common Era, these devices transformed warfare with an innovation we take for granted today, the concept of interchangeable parts. The trigger assembly was a marvel of compact engineering, a series of at least 3 interlocking bronze pieces housed within the stock. A rotating lever acted as a safety catch, preventing accidental firing. Squeezing the trigger bar released a rotating nut, which then freed the taut bowstring. This was not a crude latch, it was a system of levers and springs that distributed the immense force of the draw, allowing for a smooth, predictable trigger pull that did not jerk the soldier's aim. This mechanical consistency meant that a conscripted farmer could be trained to use a powerful, armor-piercing weapon effectively in a fraction of the time it took to master a longbow. The true genius, however, lies in the silent testimony of the artifacts themselves. Archaeologists have unearthed thousands of these bronze triggers across different excavation sites, and the components are nearly identical. They fit together seamlessly, even when sourced from different manufacturers in different regions. This points to a staggering level of standardization, a centrally controlled production system that used precise molds and measurements to create parts that were truly interchangeable. A broken trigger from one crossbow could be repaired instantly with a part from another, a logistical advantage on the battlefield that would not be seen again until the Industrial Revolution. This was mass production in the ancient world, a systematic approach to manufacturing that gave rising Chinese states an unstoppable military edge. How did they enforce such exacting standards across a vast empire without modern tools? The answer lies in a bureaucratic and organizational genius that understood the power of uniformity. This drive for consistency in creating instruments of war finds its peaceful, world-changing parallel in the next great leap, a technology that sought to bring a different kind of order to the chaos of human communication. High in the Andes, a different kind of archive was being woven, one made not of parchment but of string. The Inca Empire, the largest in the pre-Columbian Americas, administered its vast territories without a written script as we know it. Their tool for governance was the Quipu, an intricate device of knotted cords that served as a textile computer for the ancient world. From around 2,600 years before the Common Era, administrators used these colorful arrays of strings to record everything from census data and tax obligations to celestial cycles and complex historical narratives. Each element of the Quipu was a deliberate piece of data storage. The type of knot represented a numerical digit with different knots for units, tens, and hundreds. The position of the knot along the cord indicated its place value, and the color of the cord itself signified the subject matter, whether it represented a population of people, a harvest of corn, or a span of time. A trained interpreter, known as a Quipukamayok, could run their fingers along these cords and read the stories they held, translating a language of knots into vital information that held an empire together. The true mystery, however, has deepened with recent research. While long understood as a numerical system, some linguists now argue that the arrangement of knots and colors may have also encoded phonetic sounds, potentially recording poetry, laws, or the names of kings. This suggests the Quipu was not merely an accounting tool, but a potential three-dimensional written language, a concept that challenges our very definition of writing. The knowledge required to create and interpret these devices was so specialized that when the Spanish conquistadors arrived, they systematically destroyed thousands of quipus, seeing them as idolatrous objects and effectively breaking the chain of memory. Today, hundreds of these knotted cords sit in museums, silent and unreadable, their stories locked away. What epic histories or detailed astronomical observations are we unable to decipher from their intricate patterns? This sophisticated system for encoding information without text finds a parallel in an ancient technology that mastered the manipulation of light itself. While the Polynesians read the stars and waves, Viking navigators pierced the clouds themselves with a tool of pure crystal. In the fog-shrouded North Atlantic, where the sun could vanish for days, Norse sailors from the 10th century wielded a legendary device known as a sunstone. Sagas describe these translucent crystals, likely a mineral called Iceland spar, which allowed a skilled user to locate the hidden sun with astonishing precision. The secret was not magic, but an advanced, if intuitive, grasp of light's hidden properties. Iceland spar is a form of calcite that possesses a powerful ability to polarize light. As sunlight passes through our atmosphere, it becomes polarized, meaning its light waves vibrate in a specific direction relative to the sun's position. To our eyes, this pattern is completely invisible, but when you look through a chunk of Iceland spar and rotate it slowly, the crystal itself reveals the secret. The view through the stone splits into two overlapping images, and the brightness of these images changes depending on how the crystal is aligned with the polarized light in the sky. By rotating the stone until both images appear equally bright, a navigator could pinpoint the sun's bearing, even when it was entirely obscured by thick cloud cover or lingering twilight. This gave them a fixed reference point, a celestial compass when both the stars and the sun were blotted out. Modern experiments have confirmed the method's startling accuracy, proving it was a viable and reliable technology. This subtle understanding of optics enabled the Vikings to undertake their epic voyages across treacherous, open ocean, reaching Iceland, Greenland, and eventually the coast of North America long before other Europeans. They discovered a hidden signature written in the sky's very light, a natural GPS system locked inside a crystal. How did they first stumble upon such a nuanced physical phenomenon? Was it a chance observation by a sharp-eyed individual, or the accumulated wisdom of generations who learned to read the world with a depth we can scarcely comprehend? This mastery over the invisible patterns of light paved the way for an even grander ambition, one that sought not just to navigate the environment, but to reshape it completely. Even in the heart of a desert, water can be made to obey. The rose-red city of Petra, carved into the cliffs of southern Jordan, was a miracle of hydraulic engineering, not just architecture. From around 300 years before the Common Era, the Nabateans transformed their barren capital into a lush, defensible fortress by mastering every drop of rain that fell. They saw the desert not as an empty wasteland, but as a vast, sloping catchment area. Their system was a masterpiece of foresight, beginning far from the city itself. They constructed a network of diversion dams and terraces across surrounding canyons to capture the sudden, violent flash floods that would otherwise erode the landscape. This water was then channeled into a labyrinth of carved gutters and stone pipes that ran along the cliff tops, guiding the precious resource downward. But their true genius lay in storage and prevention. They honeycombed the bedrock with over 200 cisterns, some large enough to hold the annual water supply for an entire neighborhood. These reservoirs were plastered to be watertight and often built underground or in shaded crevices to drastically reduce loss to evaporation. Gravity did all the work, feeding the water through a closed system of ceramic pipes that ran beneath the streets, delivering it directly to homes, gardens, and public fountains while keeping it free from contamination. This intricate, sustainable network could support a population of 30,000 in the middle of the desert, turning Petra into a wealthy, powerful hub on the incense trade routes. Their control over water was their control over life and commerce itself. How did they develop such an intimate, precise understanding of desert ecology and seasonal rainfall patterns without modern mapping tools? Their methods stand as a timeless lesson in working with an environment rather than fighting against it. This profound ability to reshape the land itself with water paves the way for a technology of pure, earth-moving ambition. The sheer ambition of the Moai transport defies easy explanation. On a remote island in the Pacific, the Rapa Nui people carved nearly 1,000 massive stone statues, some standing over 30 feet tall and weighing as much as 80 tons. Then they moved these giants for miles across a rugged, hilly landscape, from the quarry where they were born to stone platforms overlooking the sea. How they accomplished this with no wheels, no large animals, and only stone and wood tools is one of history's most captivating engineering puzzles. One prevailing theory suggests they laid the statues face down on a sledge made from a forked tree, and then pulled this immense load over log rollers, a method requiring the coordinated effort of hundreds of people. Another, more dramatic idea proposes that the Moai were actually walked to their final positions. In this method, teams would use ropes to rock the statue from side to side, carefully inching it forward with each sway, a delicate dance of physics and human rhythm that made the stone colossus appear to stride across the land. Recent experiments have proven this upright method is not only possible but remarkably efficient, with a surprisingly small group being able to maneuver a multi-ton replica by carefully controlling its center of gravity. This was not brute force but a symphony of coordinated effort. The true technology was not in a single tool, but in the sophisticated social organization and unwavering cultural will that orchestrated every pull, every rock, and every step. It was a logistical masterpiece born of a deep spiritual commitment, a society that directed its collective energy toward raising silent sentinels to watch over their world. This monumental expression of communal effort finds its next chapter in a technology that did not move statues but moved armies, forging the very infrastructure of an empire. Graceful stone arches strode across valleys, carrying rivers in the sky. From 312 years before the Common Era, Roman aqueducts were not mere monuments, they were the precise, beating heart of urban life, a network of liquid highways that brought fresh mountain water directly into the city center. The engineering challenge was staggering. To move water for dozens of miles using only gravity, the gradient had to be perfect, a constant, shallow slope that was often as slight as 1 foot of drop for every 100 feet of distance. A miscalculation meant water would either flow too sluggishly and stagnate, or rush with destructive force and erode the channel. To achieve this, Roman surveyors used an instrument called the chorobates, a long, level wooden frame with water-filled grooves that could detect minute changes in elevation over vast distances. When they encountered a deep valley, they did not always build towering arches. Instead, they employed pressurized siphons, lead pipes that would carry the water down one side of the depression and, driven by the water's own weight and momentum, force it back up the other side to rejoin the channel. The water itself was treated with a sophisticated understanding of public health. Before entering the city, it would flow through massive sedimentation tanks where grit and impurities could settle out, and sometimes through filter beds of sand and charcoal, a rudimentary but effective purification system. This constant, clean supply fed public fountains, private homes of the wealthy, and the vast social hubs of the Roman baths, promoting hygiene and enabling cities to grow to populations that would not be seen again in Europe for over 1,000 years. How did they plan such extensive networks, coordinating the work of thousands across diverse terrains for a single, flowing purpose? The answer lies in a bureaucratic and engineering genius that could visualize a river's path from a mountain spring to a public fountain, and then make that vision stone and mortar. This mastery over channeling water to banish thirst and disease gives way to an ancient innovation that sought to conquer a different kind of darkness, not with water, but with a steady, enduring flame. A brilliant flame pierced the ancient night, a star brought down to earth for the salvation of sailors. The Lighthouse of Alexandria, rising over 100 meters into the sky, was more than a monument. It was a working machine of staggering complexity. Built in the 3rd century before the Common Era, its great fire was not left to burn wildly. Historical accounts suggest it was amplified and directed by an array of enormous, polished bronze mirrors, an early optical system designed to project the light across vast stretches of the dark Mediterranean. Keeping this celestial signal burning required an ingenious internal design, a broad spiral ramp that wound its way up through the tower's core. Donkey trains could climb this internal roadway, carrying the immense quantities of wood or other combustibles needed to feed the beacon day and night. This was not just a tower, it was a logistics hub dedicated to the singular purpose of making light travel farther than nature ever intended. The engineers who conceived it had to master fire management on an industrial scale, understand the reflective properties of metals, and possess a deep knowledge of maritime navigation and the coastal landscape. The lighthouse became a multifunctional landmark, a watchtower, a fortress, and a symbol of safe harbor that enabled the flow of goods, ideas, and people across the known world. How did they maintain such a consistent and powerful light source against the constant sea winds and the threat of its own intense heat? The answer lies in a lost art of materials science and relentless maintenance, a testament to a civilization's commitment to taming the dangers of the sea. This mastery over light to guide human movement finds its ultimate parallel in a technology that sought not to guide ships, but to map the very cosmos they sailed upon. The stars were not just points of light to the Babylonians, they were data. For centuries, scribes in the city of Babylon meticulously pressed cuneiform script into soft clay tablets, recording the nightly dance of the planets with a patience that feels alien to our modern world. These were not mystical prophecies, but rigorous scientific logs. From around 700 years before the Common Era, these astronomers tracked the movements of Venus, Jupiter, and other celestial bodies, noting their positions, brightness, and cycles with relentless precision. Their motivation was deeply practical, rooted in the belief that the heavens governed the fate of kingdoms. A celestial event like an eclipse or a planet's retrograde motion was an omen, a message from the gods about impending war, the death of a king, or the success of a harvest. To understand the sky was to have a measure of control over an unpredictable world. This drove them to create the first truly systematic, long-term astronomical records in human history. Their greatest achievement was the discovery of the Saros cycle, a repeating period of approximately 18 years and 11 days after which the Sun, Moon, and Earth returned to nearly the same relative geometry, and a similar pattern of eclipses occurs. By recognizing this celestial rhythm, they could predict eclipses with a remarkable degree of accuracy. This was not guesswork, it was computational science. They developed complex mathematical techniques using a base 60 numeral system, the very reason we have 60 seconds in a minute and 60 minutes in an hour today. They used early forms of algebra and geometry to create step-by-step procedures for calculating the positions of the moon and sun, methods so advanced they would later form the bedrock of Greek and Islamic astronomy. These clay tablets were the hard drives of the ancient world, storing predictive algorithms for the cosmos. Yet this incredible tradition of data collection and analysis was shattered by conquest and cultural collapse. The specific methodologies, the school of thought that produced these astronomer priests, was largely lost, their work buried in the desert for millennia. We are left to wonder, what other long-term cycles or celestial relationships did they identify that remain hidden on tablets still undiscovered or undeciphered? This drive to impose mathematical order on the heavens finds its earthly counterpart in a technology that sought to bring a different kind of order to the very soil beneath our feet. The mathematical order of the stars finds its echo in the most grounded of human needs, the simple act of cleanliness. While Babylonians charted the heavens, the people of the Indus Valley were perfecting the flow of water beneath their feet. In the sprawling city of Mohenjo-Daro, around 2,500 years before the Common Era, the streets were laid out in a precise grid, and running alongside them was a hidden marvel, a comprehensive network of covered drains. These were not open gutters, but carefully engineered channels built from precisely fitted bricks, covered with stone slabs to contain odors and prevent debris from falling in. The entire system was designed with a subtle but constant gradient, a gentle slope that ensured wastewater would flow steadily away from the residential areas and into larger sewer mains. This was urban hydraulics on a grand scale. The sophistication did not stop there. At regular intervals, the builders integrated something we would instantly recognize today: manholes. These access points, also capped with stone or ceramic lids, allowed maintenance workers to descend into the system to clear any blockages and ensure the continuous flow. This reveals a stunning level of foresight, a municipal commitment to long-term public health that simply did not exist elsewhere in the ancient world. Inside the homes, this commitment to hygiene was equally profound. Many residences had their own private wells and dedicated bathrooms. These were not simple corners, but purpose-built rooms with brick floors that sloped towards a drainage outlet. Wastewater from these bathrooms was channeled through terracotta pipes embedded in the walls, connecting directly to the covered street drains. Imagine the daily life in a city where waste was systematically managed, where fresh water was accessible, and where public health was a central pillar of urban design. This was not a technology of luxury, but one of communal survival and coordination. It required a shared understanding of hydraulics to prevent catastrophic flooding and the spread of waterborne diseases, a silent, collective agreement that the health of the individual was tied to the health of the city. The sheer organizational will to build and maintain this for centuries is as impressive as the engineering itself. How did a civilization so ancient conceptualize such an advanced, proactive approach to urban living? Their sanitary wisdom, so integral to their society, vanished when their culture faded from history, leaving behind a ghost of a city that rivals the comfort of our own. This mastery over water to ensure public health gives way to a technology that sought to capture a fleeting moment, freezing motion itself for all time. A plume of steam hissed from a bronze sphere, spinning it faster and faster on its pivots. In his workshop in 1st century Alexandria, Heron was not just building devices, he was orchestrating miracles of air and water. His creations were automata, self-operating machines that seemed to possess a life of their own. He engineered temple doors that swung open automatically when a priest lit a sacred fire on the altar. The heat would expand air in a hidden brass vessel, forcing water into a bucket that descended with its weight, pulling ropes that turned hidden axles to pivot the massive doors. To the faithful, it was divine intervention. To Heron, it was simply pneumatics. His most visionary device was the eolipile, often called the first steam engine. It was a sealed cauldron of water heated over a fire, with 2 pipes channeling the resulting steam up into a hollow sphere that could rotate. As the steam escaped through 2 angled nozzles, the sphere whirled with remarkable force, a clear demonstration of action and reaction. This was not a toy, it was a working principle of steam power, a technology that would not be harnessed for industry for another 1700 years. Heron documented these and dozens of other inventions in his book, The Pneumatica, a blueprint for a mechanical world that never came to be. His devices were used for entertainment, for temple wonders, and for theatrical effects, a playful application of profound physics. The question hangs heavy in the air, much like the steam in his workshop. Had his eolipile been connected to a wheel or a pump? Had its potential for work been recognized beyond the spectacle? Could the Industrial Revolution have begun in ancient Rome? His work represents a path not taken, a burst of mechanical creativity that was celebrated for its magic but never leveraged for its world-changing power. This spirit of engineering to serve a community found a different, far more permanent expression in the next great innovation. A single slab of granite spans a rushing stream, a silent pathway laid down thousands of years ago. These are the clapper bridges of ancient Britain, deceptively simple structures that have carried foot traffic since the Bronze Age without a single drop of mortar. Their design is an exercise in elegant minimalism, just massive, flat stones laid across sturdy piles of rock or from one riverbank to another, held in place by nothing more than their own immense weight and the careful calculation of their builders. This was not guesswork, it was an intuitive mastery of physics. The builders understood load distribution, how the weight of a person or an animal would be transferred directly down through the stone slab and into the solid piers below. They possessed a geologist's eye, selecting stones that were not only large and flat, but also dense and strong enough to resist cracking under constant stress and the freeze-thaw cycles of centuries. They chose their sites with equal care, placing these bridges where the banks were stable and the water's flow was predictable. In the rugged, inaccessible moors of Devon and Cornwall, these simple spans were lifelines, facilitating local trade and travel where more complex construction was impossible. They connected communities, allowing for the movement of goods, people, and ideas across natural barriers that would have otherwise isolated them. The Clapper Bridge is a testament to the power of low-tech, high-intelligence design. It uses locally available materials in their most effective form, achieving a durability that has outlasted countless modern structures built with far more complex methods. What deep principles of balance and static equilibrium did these ancient engineers grasp through observation and experience alone? Their legacy is a quiet reminder that sometimes the most enduring solutions are not the most complicated, but the most fundamentally sound. This profound understanding of how to work with the land to sustain communities finds its ultimate expression in a technology that fed entire civilizations. The final technology on our list did not rise from a king's decree or a philosopher's dream, but from the quiet, relentless struggle to feed a family. The moldboard plow was a humble tool with a revolutionary curve. In ancient China and later in Europe, from around 1,000 years before the Common Era, farmers moved beyond simple digging sticks and ard plows that just scratched a line in the earth. They forged a blade of iron that sliced through the soil and, crucially, attached a curved metal plate called the moldboard right behind it. As the plow was pulled by oxen, this curved plate performed a kind of magic. It did not just break the ground, it lifted the cut sod, turned it completely over, and deposited it back into the furrow upside down. This single, elegant motion solved multiple problems at once. It efficiently buried weeds and the stubble from the previous harvest, which then decomposed to fertilize the earth. It exposed fresh, nutrient-rich soil to the surface and dramatically improved aeration, allowing water and air to penetrate deeper, creating the perfect bed for seeds. The most significant impact, however, was on the land itself. The older scratch plows were useless on the dense, wet, clay-rich soils of northern Europe. They would simply skim the surface. The moldboard plow, with its ability to cut deep and turn the heavy earth, opened up vast new territories for farming. This was not merely an improvement, it was a geographical expansion of human possibility. Farmers could now settle and cultivate the fertile river valleys and plains that had previously resisted their efforts. The plow's evolution was a direct conversation with the environment. As ironworking improved, so did the strength and shape of the moldboard, allowing it to handle even more challenging soils. This tool fundamentally altered the equation of civilization. Reliable, abundant food from previously unusable land directly fueled population growth and the stability needed for towns to become cities. How many great cultures owe their existence not to a famous battle, but to the silent, curved metal that conquered the soil beneath their feet? This agrarian innovation brings our exploration to a close, yet the story of these forgotten technologies is far from over. They are not just relics, but reminders of the incredible heights human ingenuity can reach when necessity and observation meet. These brilliant innovations did not appear in a vacuum. They were born from specific worlds, shaped by the unique pressures and possibilities of their time. Across vast continents, without any means of global communication, human societies repeatedly stumbled upon similar engineering solutions, a testament to our shared ingenuity when faced with universal challenges like scarcity, survival, and the desire to understand our universe. The flourishing of a technology often depended on a delicate balance of factors. The sprawling trade routes of the Silk Road did not just carry silk and spices. They were highways for ideas where the knowledge of Damascus steel could travel from India to the forges of Syria. A period of peace and prosperity, like that of the Roman Pax Romana or the Islamic Golden Age, provided the stability and patronage necessary for scholars and artisans to experiment, to fail, and to refine their craft over generations. Royal courts and wealthy merchants funded libraries and workshops, creating environments where a Heron of Alexandria could tinker with steam power or a team of anonymous masons could perfect the self-healing chemistry of Roman concrete. Yet this very dependency on a stable society also reveals the profound fragility of progress. The same knowledge that took centuries to accumulate could be scattered in a single generation by war, famine, or political collapse. The intricate gears of the Antikythera mechanism fell silent not because the science was invalid, but because the civilization that supported its makers crumbled. The recipe for Greek fire vanished when the empire that guarded it fell. The organizational genius behind the Quipu was dismantled by conquest, its language of knots rendered silent. This pattern forces a humbling reflection. Our own technological era, for all its global networks and digital storage, is not immune to these same forces. What common threads, then, connect these disparate inventions across time and space? It is a deep, observant relationship with the natural world, a willingness to learn from the properties of stone, the flow of water, and the polarization of light. It is the power of sustained cultural will, the collective effort that could move Moai or build aqueducts, and it is the recognition that knowledge itself is the most precious and perishable resource of